Hey everybody, it's Jenny from GrowthMode Marketing. You're listening to Demand Gen Fix, the podcast where our team of growth moders and our guests discuss the ins and outs of demand generation and why we believe it's the key to long-term sustainable growth, especially in the HR tech industry.
Hello, everybody. Deanna here, and I have my friend Greg with me. And today we are going to talk about leveraging LinkedIn to reach HR tech buyers. The reality is building brand awareness in the market can take many forms. And one channel that we think has gained a lot of momentum in the last year or two is LinkedIn, with a lot of HR tech companies using it and leveraging it, and they've likely figured out that they can amplify their company's brand on this platform to drive bigger brand awareness, credibility, and trust in the market. So Greg and I are going to talk about ways that you can leverage LinkedIn and basically turn it into a meaningful marketing channel for your company.
There's a couple of ways you could approach it. Most basic form is that it doesn't really cost anything other than your time to do LinkedIn posting. And then there's also the paid aspect of LinkedIn where you can use different types of ads and messaging.
Yeah, and obviously people's time, there is a cost factor to that. But if you're a marketer in an organization that doesn't have large marketing budgets and you have to be scrappy, I think LinkedIn is one of those ways that you can try to expand the reach of your company's marketing without having to have that significant marketing budget, because it is people power. And so let's start there first. How do you build a bigger presence on LinkedIn for little to no cost?
I think it's important that you know who your audience is, who are you trying to talk to, who are you trying to engage with. And then once you start to figure that out and you start to make connections with those types of people that fit that profile, it's not an overnight success story, right? You have to just keep working at it and put a little bit of time into it each day and work towards understanding which is the best thing, what works for you.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point about knowing your audience, but also you have to actively build the audience. Anybody that's created a company page or posted stuff on their LinkedIn profile is probably well aware that just because you post it doesn't mean it gets visibility, right? You've got those darn algorithms that are constantly changing on LinkedIn. And I see plenty of posts where people are trying to figure out how to get more reach with their content by playing with the algorithms versus against them. But I think the number one thing is if you have an audience, but they're not relevant to your products, your services, what you're selling, then it's the wrong audience. And so you have to be a bit intentional, I think, with the audiences to, one, build up your personal following, to build up your company following. If you've created a group on LinkedIn, building up that following and being focused on who you're connecting with. And I can tell you, one of the things that I've done, I have worked at many jobs over the years, and I've built up this network of people that I used to work with. Over the years, we've all spread out to different companies and gotten further and further apart, right? And that network, I think I just saw a notice, ages me a bit, but it was like 17 years on LinkedIn.
Wow.
I was like, wow. Yeah, that's a long time. I must have signed up when I was pretty young in my career. But over the years, 17 years, I've built up quite an audience, right? And Greg, I'm sure you have the same experience. Like when you go and you look at it, it's like, is this who I'm trying to reach and sell to today? Not necessarily. Some of them, absolutely, because I have worked in the HR tech industry in the past, but some of them, they're friends, they're past contacts, they're my dad. I feel like you have to go through your network, maybe cull out contacts that you no longer have a need to be connected to that aren't in your audience, and then start to actively look to connect with people that are actually the audience you want to do. Whether it's your personal profile or it's like inviting people to view your company page, because I've seen plenty of companies where they just invite everyone to view their company page. And it's great. You have 2,500 followers to your company page, but 3% of them are actually people that your content is relevant to.
Right. Are they relevant or not?
Yeah, it has to be an intentional effort to grow your audience.
And sort of in the same way, you can increase your reach, right? You can, but once you're connected with these other people that you're already connected with, then you're increasing your reach because your content is going through. If they like it or comment on it, then all of their friends and contacts will see it too. So you're increasing your reach that way, but you can also do other things too. Like your company have brand ambassadors for your company that are posting and talking about your company and what you do. And somebody has to be the first to show everybody what to do and teach them how to do it and set an example for the team. So it takes a while to get these things rolling, but it can make a difference.
Yeah, let's dig a bit more into what a brand ambassador program is, because I've seen some HR tech companies do it really well. I could name drop here, but I don't want to play favorites, so I won't. But I've seen where the CEO takes the lead and they're constantly posting content and building up their audience. And what happens is the employees see that and they start to follow suit, right? I've also seen it originate in marketing with the marketing leader building up their own personal brand on behalf of the company to set an example for the rest of the team and show them this is how you do it. And then they've turned around and advocated for everyone else. Hey, it's really not that hard. In fact, it's fun to build that reputation. And this reflects really well on our company brand because it's building more awareness. And where I think there's value in a brand ambassador program is people connect with people. And no matter how much content you put out on your company page, you're going to see more engagement when it's a person that's posting that exact same content. One, because they have an audience, they probably have a further reach. And two, the algorithms obviously favor posts that are on a personal versus a company page. But also, I think when you can put a face to it, I can tell you, I see plenty of posts regularly from people in the HR tech industry on LinkedIn, and maybe I've never met them in person, but I feel some level of connection with them. Because I'm like, oh, Jim, he always posts really good content. I should look him up next time I'm at the HR Technology Conference, right?
Yeah, it's true. Or you get to know their personality a little bit, or they have just a little bit of humor or something. So you like them because it's not just a company posting company blah, blah, blah. It's an actual person that you start to feel a connection with, just like you said.
Yeah, and especially if you start interacting with them, like engaging with their content, they start to engage with your content. I've seen that certainly with people on LinkedIn that I've commented on their posts, and then I start to see them looking at my post and commenting on it. I think you've probably seen that too, Greg, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And even when we do social media work for our clients and you're logged in as your client commenting and posting things, and then you start to get like, not a relationship, but still you see the same thing you were just talking about, but they're connecting with this weird situation, right? It's not really fake, but it's awkward or odd. I'm not even sure how to describe it.
It's the marketing's dirty little secret, right? Like sometimes they have marketers behind there putting out that authentic content on behalf of an individual. That certainly does happen. But from the other side, as a viewer, you're seeing it come from that CEO or that marketing leader or that sales leader. Or in an ideal situation, if you're truly building out a brand ambassador program within your company, you're seeing it come from multiple people across the company. And one piece of advice that I would give any organization or marketing leader that's looking at starting a brand ambassador program is give your employees guidance, but also the freedom to do it their way and to be their own person. So you're not feeding them the content saying, here's everything you need to post, but you're giving them guidance as in, here's the type of things you can post about, and here's how you can engage with the company content and with different influencers out there in the industry, just so they have an idea. Because I think for a lot of employees, they're like, I would love to help. I got nothing to say. And that's not true. They can absolutely, with a little bit of guidance, have some great things to say out in the market on behalf of the company.
Yeah, and it'd be nice because you could have different people in different parts of the organization, right? So you'd have different perspectives, but you've given that guidance. So at least there's like something common around what everybody's saying.
And I have seen that but specifically with some HR tech companies out there where they do a really good job with having brand ambassadors where the company will take all the employees on a trip, for example. And I can tell you after that weekend's over, I probably saw 7 different posts from 7 different employees from their company talking about that and how that employee experience improved the culture, which guess what? It's a company that offers a product that helps improve culture. So it was very relevant. And obviously, that marketing leader has done a great job of helping employees understand how they can talk about these things out there in the market on behalf of the company and that it's okay. In fact, it's encouraged.
So like we started to say before, you have to be consistent, be active, engage with other content and comment and post, connect with other people. What is social media? So you want to be social, right? And connect with people and try and engage beyond your own content by, we said, commenting on other people's stuff and liking it and sharing articles and things. And then over time, you can track and keep track of what resonates with people and what doesn't, what topics are important to your audience and what isn't, and then lean into that stuff that is getting some traction.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's not just about posting your own content. It's about engaging with other people and saying more than, I agree, or that's great. You want to put meaningful comments out there on topics that are relevant to what they're saying, but that demonstrate your expertise and your team's expertise. And when you find things that people respond to them, they're liking your posts, the views are up, there's more comments. Those are the content to lean into. And I think that brings us to another point is you've got to make your content meaningful. So don't just create content for the sake of content. You've got to create content with your ideal audience in mind and have a strategy so that you're doing it with intent. You want to bring that point of view and look at all the different ways you can talk about topics that are relevant to your audience that tie back to your HR technology. So I don't know, that could be things, lessons learned, tips and tricks, advice for common challenges, even case study examples. Like, here's what we've tried, here's what we've seen work, here's what we've failed at, here's what we've seen really excel, industry trends, and even this one, the collaborations and partnerships. So with that, it's not that you're taking someone else's content and just throwing it out there, but it is an opportunity to look at influencers out in the industry, for example, and say, hey, let's do a LinkedIn Live together on this topic. And now you've got your audience, you're pulling in their audience, which if you're picking the right collaborations and partnerships happen to be the same ideal customer profile as you target, and you build that content together to add some value.
I think that's adding the value is the key point, right? Because there's so much, like you said, that one commenting where people go, wow, that was great. Thanks for sharing. Like, that's nice. And we appreciate when somebody says that, but that's not really providing any additional value, especially now with people are starting to use AI to write posts and do things like that automatically. It's like you need to not just regurgitate what's already out there. You have to take what somebody else said or what somebody else wrote and then put your own spin on it. What makes you unique? What's the perspective you have on this instead of just, here's a great article. Tell me why this is a great article, because that makes you the expert, right? That shows that you are human and you have a unique point of view.
Yeah, and you do a great job with that, Greg, talking about AI in marketing. Like, you'll see things and you might share an article, but you'll give your perspective on it. So it's not just saying the same thing that the original poster's commentary was about. It's giving a different angle or perspective on it or explaining why you think it's a really great article, things like that. I think you can absolutely go out there and find inspiration for topics by looking at what other people are posting. You don't want to steal their content. If you're going to talk about something they talked about, by all means, give them credit. Or if you're just getting inspiration from it, make sure you put your own unique opinion and spin on it. But there's lots of really good thoughts and commentary out there. There's also a lot of just content for the sake of content out there. So the challenge, I think, is sorting through your feed if you have a really large audience and you're seeing a million different things to find the golden nuggets of ideas, but they're certainly out there. And I don't think there's anything wrong with taking inspiration on topics to come up with your own ideas.
Yeah, and sometimes it's nice. Sometimes it works really nice too when you do have inspiration from somebody that you say, I read this article that this person, tag that person, and then give your perspective, and then they see it and write, and then they like it, and then they comment, and all their audience gets involved in it too. So you can be, not, you said, you're not stealing their stuff, but you're inspired by it, and then you link them into it. You don't have to take it totally as your own, but you can bring them into it because they inspired you. So it's kind of a cool way to play around with it.
Yeah, and a great example of where you could do that is if an industry analyst that specializes in the HR tech space happens to publish some research or an opinion, things like that. You could totally give some perspective on their research report or thinking that they're putting out there and tag them and start that conversation and that social engagement, as you will, with the industry analysts out in there.
And that gives you a chance to you're actually being creative, right? I mean, because you're looking at all these different things and you're trying to think about what's my angle and what's my point of view. And when you're doing that, you can show a little bit of your personality, which is what we were talking about a while ago, right? People start to get to know each other a little bit and at least know, okay, this person always posts good stuff. This person posts funny stuff, but you can show your personality and then show that you're actually a human being and you're not, AI, or you're not, right? Like, it's just robot posting stuff. So,
yeah. And I think as you get creative with your content, also look at the various options that LinkedIn offers. It's not just posts that you're confined to, and you can post your own posts on LinkedIn and you can comment on other people's posts. But there's also, you can publish articles on LinkedIn. You can publish a newsletter on LinkedIn. You can leverage the direct messaging and InMail if you have tools like Sales Navigator. You can join groups and join the conversations in those. And you can also even try LinkedIn live events where you have basically like a live webinar or interview or some type of speaking engagement where you can pre-invite people to it. And as you're doing it live, they can come and watch you in that moment, which also you can record it and they can come back and watch it later too. So there's lots of options, I think, that should be leveraged. And I've seen some organizations do it really well where they're like, okay, we have a newsletter. We're regularly posting articles. We've also got live events we're doing every week or every couple of weeks where they're really looking at all of the ways that they can use LinkedIn. And I think one of the things to take away when you're building a LinkedIn marketing program is it's really important to do it consistently. So there are companies that are well-intentioned out there that will have one post a month on their company page, and that's all they do. I doubt that's getting much traction or much visibility for them. But if you look at companies on the flip side of the coin that are doing all these different things and they're posting at least 2-3 times a week, if not more, and they're doing articles and they're doing newsletters and just intentional about how they're using LinkedIn, that over time they're building up that audience and they're building more engagement with their content because they're putting good content out there. And they've been mindful about the audience that they intentionally build behind their LinkedIn profiles and their company pages. And they're not getting discouraged if the engagement isn't high, because what I have learned, I've posted and been like, hello, hello, hello. Is anyone out there? You don't get a ton of comments or likes on it. And then I will run into someone at a conference or around town and they'll be like, I see your content all the time on LinkedIn. And I'm like, you've never liked it, never commented on it. I had no idea you saw it, but I'm good to know, right?
it's true. You never know because it's just out there. And the other thing you can do with that, if you have something that you posted and it didn't get any traction, you can circle back to it later and then link back to that article or whatever you wrote, right? Your post or whatever, and talk about it again and resurface it. And then sometimes it gets traction at a different time instead of just that it didn't get any traction.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Greg, because one of the challenges that I see, even on a personal level with LinkedIn and posting content regularly, is it's like, oh man, this is a heavy lift to come up with unique thoughts every day to put out there into the universe. But the reality is, after a while, you build up all this content that you've put out there and you look at the view statistics and it's like, oh man, this one I had 4,000 people saw it. That's great. But this one, I had 150 people see it. Reality is you can recycle some of that content. You can repurpose it where you adjust it a little bit, but they say if you wait at least 2 weeks to repost the same thing, there's no penalty for it. And the odds are people that saw it the first time, if you have an audience of 5,000 on your personal network and 150 people saw it, the next time you post it, it's probably going to be different people whose feeds it shows up on. So there's no shame in reusing and repurposing content. You just want to make sure you have a big enough library that there's space between, and maybe that space is more than 2 weeks. Maybe it's a few months that you rotate content through so that someone who does happen to see a lot of your content isn't like, dear Lord, I see the same post from Deanna every single week for 6 months. Like, I get the point, Deanna. You think that people shouldn't cut their marketing budgets.
But it's almost like commenting on somebody else's stuff here. You comment on your own stuff. I posted this last month and I just had an idea about this and resurface it. As long as if you're adding some value to what you're doing, there's no reason not to repurpose stuff.
Totally. And as you're building up this content library, doing it in all the ways that don't require additional budget to do, there is the ability to amplify your reach with paid campaigns. And I don't think if you don't have a LinkedIn presence, the first thing you should do is go spend a bunch of money on LinkedIn ads. I think you need to put in the groundwork first to make sure you have good content out there, have really well-defined profiles for key people in the organization, have good company pages, all of those things. But then you can look at what's performing well and what topics seem to resonate, and you can amplify that reach through LinkedIn. And so, Greg, let's talk about some of the options from a paid perspective that companies can do to enhance the work that they're doing on LinkedIn.
One of the things you can do is boost a post, right? And then you basically have to select all these targeting options, right? Your demographics and your geography and your job functions and seniority levels, and come up with this audience, right? Through their tools to target where you want this post to show up.
Yeah, and there's actually a few different ways that you can target people on LinkedIn. There's what you're talking about, Greg, which is using the targeting features to select specific demographics. So you're going in and you are saying, like, this is the job function, this is the industries, this is the company size, et cetera, et cetera. But you can also do things like target key accounts. So LinkedIn does allow you to upload a list of companies or email addresses so that you can target specific accounts or people. So let's say you're marketing to HR leaders at manufacturing companies, and you've already identified 500 manufacturing companies you want to go after. You can upload that into LinkedIn and then make sure the paid content that you've got out there is only visible to them. Another way you can expand is using the demographics. You can use LinkedIn's audience network, where it basically allows you to extend the reach of your sponsored content to partner sites and apps to increase your brand's visibility across the web. I think a lot of people have found they spend a lot of money on that and it is not as impactful. I think you just have to be really careful on who you're using or what demographics you're using for targeting so that it doesn't get out of control. That's probably not the first place that I would spend my money, but a couple other ways that you can target audiences to get your content out there is one, website retargeting. So as long as you have the pixels on your website to track the IP addresses of people that are coming to your site, you can then feed that into LinkedIn. And so let's say you have a couple thousand people coming to your website every month. Great. When they go on LinkedIn, show them content and ads specifically for your company, because you can link the two up together. And so let's say you have a case study page that people come to and you're seeing a lot of traffic to that case study page. You can set up a LinkedIn campaign so that they're seeing content when they go on LinkedIn that helps move them along because there's some level of intent if they're looking at a case study, right? Another similar spin on the whole retargeting is engagement retargeting. So within LinkedIn, you can target users who have engaged with your LinkedIn content or ads in the past and continue to put content in front of them. And I know there's companies out there that do that because there are certainly certain individuals or companies that I've clicked on their posts on LinkedIn before and looked at it. And next thing I know, I'm seeing their content all the time in my feed and I'm seeing little ads in the corner and they've clearly got a strategy. From a demographic standpoint, must have met the profile that they built out because now I'm seeing their content a lot and that's a campaign that they're paying for, right? So yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can target individuals within LinkedIn. And I think that's the first step before you even decide which type of content or campaigns you're going to use. But once you figure that out, then there's a few options that you can use and we can real quickly walk through some of those.
I touched on this before, but sponsored content, right? Some of your high performing posts, you can boost those posts and you can obviously pick what type of audience you want, et cetera, and get really down to the nitty gritty if you want. But if they're already well organically done, they're resonating. So if you're picking your ICP as your audience, and then they should get some extra traction with those posts.
The sponsored content, it shows up in the feed. Maybe you've noticed at times you'll see an individual's profile in their post and it'll say on there like promoted content or something similar to that. That shows you like, that's actually a paid ad or it's sponsored content. This is why it's showing up. But if you're just looking through your feed, you wouldn't even realize that it's not a normal post like everything else on there because it blends in so seamlessly, but it shows up consistently. And again, I've seen this because I've clicked on certain individuals' content before and all of a sudden their content regularly shows up. Almost every time I look in LinkedIn, I see some of their content out there. And then there are other people who I intentionally follow and their content shows up for me sporadically based on algorithms for LinkedIn. So you don't see every post that everyone who follows you or you follow put out there because if you have a big network, that'd be way too much content. So the algorithms are picking and choosing what gets in front of you. And obviously they're going to prioritize those that are paid for over anything that was free, that was put out there. So it's good to keep that in mind as you're thinking about how you reach your own audiences. If you really want to make sure they see it, add the paid campaigns in.
And they have just regular native ads, right? Like sponsored content that appears directly in your LinkedIn feed. Oh, you were just talking about that, blending in with the content. Well, there's also those carousels and those types of things that you could use. Video ads.
You're right, Greg. The native ads also show up in the feed. The sponsored content looks more like a typical post with copy and things like that. The native ads are more like an ad type of. So there might be a video, for example, and you can click on the video and watch it, things like that.
The other interesting thing, and you probably get them if you're on LinkedIn, is sponsored in-mails, right? It's like you get this message in-mail box that's basically a sponsored message of somebody telling you to come get your online MBA or something like that. But you can leverage those to talk about the benefits of your technology and get that out to your target audience and of LinkedIn members. You can make this pretty personalized because it'll have a picture in there and it's to and from an actual person. And it seems less intrusive than a email message that you would get that's cold, but the email seems a little more personal.
Yeah, I think sometimes it can be more effective than email actually, because we get so much in our email inboxes that if you have someone who goes on LinkedIn regularly enough, where they're looking at the messages that come in, there's going to be likely less in-mails in their inbox than there are emails in their inbox, right? So it's another way to reach them. It doesn't replace email, but it's a way from a LinkedIn perspective. Even if you're not connected with the individual, I think that's the benefit of in-mail is if you have Sales Navigator or one of those other subscriptions on LinkedIn, then you'll get allotted so many you can send per month to reach out to people. Also, you can do text ads. Those are pretty self-explanatory, but they're also fairly economical because you can choose between pay per click or pay per impression on those. And I think they're ideal for driving traffic to your website or to a specific landing page with clear call to action. They're short and sweet, so there's not a lot you can put into them. But if you're only paying for the clicks, then it can be relatively cost effective. And if it's really successful and you're sending them somewhere where they're converting, then it's definitely worth testing that out. And you also got dynamic ads and video ads. And dynamic ads are basically like they're customized ads. So for example, if you've ever looked on the right side of your LinkedIn page, and there might be an ad there and it has the name of your college that you went to, or your photo, or your job title, or something like that in the ad itself. Those are dynamic, and a lot of times those are used for things like building up followers to your company page, promoting offers, trying to promote content pieces, things like that. And then, of course, video ads. I mean, it's about using video as an ad. I don't know if there's much more to say about that. That's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, those are good though. You could use like a quick demonstration or a quick testimonial or something like that in a video ad. It's interesting, and if it's the right story, it resonates with your audience.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's a lot of options on LinkedIn, not just with the free tools that you can use to put content out there. But if you want to amplify that message, you can do some of these paid campaigns too, and really make LinkedIn work for you. And so I would say if your buying audience hangs out on LinkedIn, this really can be a prime marketing channel for your company. And it can play a really good role in reinforcing and expanding your company's brand in a somewhat non-intrusive way, because it feels intrusive to people to get an email in their inbox or to get a phone call, right? But when they're going on LinkedIn and they're seeing this content naturally, with the exception of InMail, which really is an email just through LinkedIn, that they just see it as part of the collective experience of being on LinkedIn, right? And so it can build credibility and trust over time. So I encourage companies that aren't taking advantage of LinkedIn to invest the time in it and turn it into a marketing channel that's impactful for you, because we know HR professionals are hanging out on LinkedIn. I mean, more than any other audience, right? It's likely that a lot of them are hanging out there because LinkedIn, let's face it, was created to be a tool for networking and helping people find jobs and find candidates. So I don't know a single HR professional that doesn't leverage LinkedIn to some degree.
Thanks for joining us on the Demand Gen Fix, a podcast for HR tech workers, brought to you by GrowthMode Marketing. We sure hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe for more perspectives on demand generation and B2B marketing strategies. Plus, give us a like. Tell your friends. We'll see you next time.